Businesses tend to fall, in my experience, into two distinct types. Those with a little bit of legal knowledge and those with limited or no knowledge at all. The first type, those with legal knowledge, address the issues of their employment obligations. They have contracts of employment, they have policies and procedures, and they have staff and management handbooks. And when they consult, requiring perhaps a top-up of where they are, then they're really looking to streamline their processes and update and modernise what they've got. Of course, employment law changes very rapidly. The current government, and I say that speaking in March of 2010, so perhaps by the time some of you are viewing this later on in 2010, we may or may not have a different government, but certainly the current government's regime is that each year in April and October they amend employment obligations for employers. Now that creates an ongoing need to monitor and manage employment law issues. In relation to those with limited or no employment knowledge as employers, they typically have no contracts of employment, they have poor management control of staff, they have high rates of sickness and absence, and typically poor profitability. Good employment law practice tends to lead to good profitability as well, but it will only do that if you focus on helping your client move from being one to the other. Well, the first question that often employment lawyers are asked are, do all businesses need legal advice? And I always set out why they need something. Recruiting the right people for the right roles is central. There's the legal compliance element, staying out of trouble, making sure that the business doesn't suffer from a large discrimination claim or an unfair dismissal claim and doesn't get redundancies and the basics of good employment practice wrong. And the profits are linked in most businesses to people and their performance, so they need something to manage the people and the performance. And then why people need a lawyer? Well, typically I see clients when a tribunal claim has been threatened or issued, that a management consultant is engaged with the business to try and develop the business, and they obviously want expert advice at that stage on the non-management issues, but to do with managing people. And the business is growing or shrinking, so they're taking lots of people on, so they're suddenly aware that this thing they've always meant to do, that they're suddenly going to do, or they need to contract the business and therefore need advice on how to make redundancies or implement short-time working effectively. Well, what happens to you, the lawyer, if you get this wrong? Well, there's the risk of professional embarrassment, but to your client there's the risk of their embarrassment to their reputation, their business. There's risks of damaging the business's cash flow, and the base issues to focus on really are that this is about protecting the business. What to do? Well, the starting point with employment law is always to have what you've done documented. Some of you may have watched other courses that I've done for legaltraining.tv, and you will recognise that the themes that I'm talking about here have been outlined in other courses, because what's good practice remains good practice. There should be offers of employment letters. There should be contracts or statements of terms of employment. A contract is a more developed version of the statement of terms and conditions. Terms and conditions are the basic statutory minimum stemming from Section 1 of the Employment Rights Act 1996. That sets out a bare minimum that must be adhered to. It's available freely on the web, of course, and there are free compliance type documents that are available freely on the web. So as an employment lawyer, as somebody coming to you to seek employment advice, what I would say to you is that you want to go above and beyond that. You want to help them manage their staff. I'm a big believer that you should always have a staff handbook and a manager's operation manual to help them manage the day-to-day staff issues.